All right, thanks, Nigel. So we will try and keep this slightly shorter than planned because of our delayed start time. But my name's Chris Holmes. I'm the Programme Director for Transport, WM5G. I'm joined today by my three colleagues, Chris, David and Martin, who will introduce themselves later on. So I guess perhaps just to sort of start off with, for those who don't know who WM5G are, we're a DCMS and local government funded 3-year programme with origins in the Urban Connected Communities programme. As an organisation, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the West Midlands Combined Authority, and we're just starting our final year. So what's WM5G doing? So overall, there were two main things that the organisation set up to do. One was to help facilitate the faster rollout of 5G in the West Midlands, and secondly was to provide funding to support new products and services. And we've got programmes across an accelerator, which has got 3 centres in Birmingham, Coventry and Wolverhampton. We've also got manufacturing and healthcare programmes. But we're here to talk to you about the transport programme, and we're providing and have provided funding through grants to stimulate growth in transport products and services which are 5G enabled. So in terms of what we're going to cover, I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking to you about some of the products and demonstrations that we've run and are supporting. We've got a short video, which is a selection of discussion across a number of our projects. It's not all of them, but it's to hear directly from the projects themselves in terms of what they're doing. And then, importantly, then my colleagues can then talk you through what they are doing and how they're supporting the various projects that we're running and how we're offering to add value. So to start off with, then, the objectives. So why is there a transport programme? So there are some compelling statistics showing the challenges faced on the roads, with lost time due to congestion being the biggest economic factor. Safety obviously continues to be a big focus. Health is a growing concern, with targets being implemented in urban environments to set acceptability for pollutant levels. We've also got investment on and in roads is also very significant, with around £11 billion per annum being spent on new investment and maintenance of the roads that we have. So a big headache. We've got a similar story for rail and trams, with on-time arrival of services being the biggest consideration. You've got station management, making stations accessible, and providing live information on services are also areas where improvement is possible. And I would say that operational costs is also a major consideration. And connectivity and sensing as a combination can offer the backbone for a lot of new technology and development. So with that in mind, the transport programme's got 3 main objectives. The first is focused on efficiency. So this is really looking at savings in terms of costs, which can provide more or better services. It's focusing on congestion and issues on the road that contribute to that. Our second objective is to support expansion of transport. So, for example, to connect different modes of travel and to help with new services. So things like active travel, expansion of various modes of transport, whether it be buses or trams are a key part of that as well. And thirdly, and probably really relevant in today's environment, is the traveller experience. So in the recent past, things like service comfort and productivity have been quite a big focus, but with COVID, then confidence to travel and the provision of information and options to people has become much more important and relevant. So what does success look like for us? So there's three key things that we are trying to do. First is to help the businesses to grow through new products and services. We really want to provide a legacy to the West Midlands, but also nationally. So once these projects have finished, we really want them to be successful. We want the West Midlands to adopt those and also for them to be relevant on a national level. And again, I guess it sounds a bit trite, but really make a difference to travel. So that is really our main success criteria. So earlier last year, we ran what we called some early demonstrators or short-term trials. We ran 4 studies with 4 different organisations. The first studied capturing curbside parking spaces through scanning the roadside with passing vehicles. That showed lots of possibility, but also showed quite a few challenges, I would say. The second project was looking at infrastructure-based cameras passing HD images live through to traffic control sensors, and this is combined with intelligence in the sensor itself to help provide a much richer environment about road users and the behaviours of those road users. The third project looked at streaming live CCTV data from a moving tram, which runs from Birmingham to Wolverhampton. And the live CCTV on that vehicle, I guess what became apparent was it has multiple uses, and we'll talk about that later on because we have a number of projects which are utilising that kind of service. And then the fourth project was a very interesting early proof of concept. We were working with Ericsson, which was looking at using the signal from your mobile handset to transmitter. It's a little bit like a radar, where it's looking at the scattering of the data, and can you use that to determine road users. That was really, really encouraging, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. So one of the things that we found from those early demonstrators was that 3 out of those products and services actually used the upload capacity capabilities rather than the often talked about download capabilities. And again, that's a bit of a trend in transport, is that many of the services, although when you're looking at the customer side of the service, it's download, but actually to provide the data input into that is very much looking at the upload service side of it. So another big investment that we are co-running. So Transport for West Midlands are running this project. We call it Road Sensor Network Project. It started early last year. It's working with the 7 local authorities in the West Midlands and it's being delivered, as I said, in partnership with Transport for West Midlands. It's deploying over 300 sensors at different locations across what we call the key route network, which are the main arterial roads carrying 50% of the traffic across the region on about 5% of the roads. So the sensor set utilised, it's all 5G enabled, so it's transmitting the data over the air. Sensors primarily to detect the road users, so such as bikes, cars and HGVs are primarily cameras. And then we've also got emissions and weather sensing devices as well. So technically, we're interested to understand both the social and transport benefits, but also understand the technical performance of the 5G. So how robust is it? How much data is required? Where to site the sensors? And importantly, what are the security considerations with a service like this? I guess it'd be fair to say that over the first phase of the last few months, we've also learned a lot about the installing, planning, data management, and also some of the sort of backhaul requirements. And TFWM are then using that for now the larger scale deployment, which is just starting this year. So the portfolio of projects, I just wanted to finish with this, just to give you an idea of the projects that we're running and how they fit into the road rail infrastructure and that traveller experience. So we've got 4 projects covering the road infrastructure, so monitoring road users, so as just described. We've got another project which is looking at modelling the traffic scenarios to provide informed choice to manage the planned or more immediate incidents. We've got projects looking at identifying curbside parking, and also another one looking at detecting the condition of the road assets, so things like potholes, white lines, etc. We've got 3 projects focused on rail. We're trialling on trams and railway with products which you could transfer between the two. Obviously, the main difference is the speed of those vehicles and the connectivity availability, but in principle, those projects can transfer. So those are looking at the condition of the track. They're looking at condition of the overhead power lines, what's happening with the pantograph, but also we've got a project there as well, which is looking at remote monitoring of a new autonomous light rail vehicle concept. And then lastly, we've got 7 projects which are covering traveller experience, from helping with travel to the venues, where you have crowds and large number of vehicles congregating. We've got security on board a service. We've got alerts to operators when there are issues or if there's distress. We've got the collation of customer feedback and interpretation of what people are saying. We've got crowding information on board vehicles and in the hubs and shelters, and also station support for vulnerable or insecure. And finally, we've got a project there as well, which is looking at to help the 2 million partially sighted people that we have in the UK. So I'd like to, so with that as a backdrop, I'd like just to get in and play for you. It's a 10-minute video, and this is the consortia talking themselves and our customers about the projects that they're running.
West Midlands 5G has partnered with Ericsson's Mast as a Sensor project team to prove that 5G cellular network infrastructure can provide real-time transport insights. With 18% of global CO2 emissions produced by road users, smarter traffic management is needed to counteract this and respond in real time to congestion and pollution issues. Standard roadside traffic information comes from different, often analogue sources. Phone masts could provide an additional source of traffic data to complement existing infrastructure. By using existing 5G infrastructure, the physical deployment of standard traffic sensors could be removed, as each mast instantly covers a large area. As 5G masts are always on, highly reliable and secure, data is accessible in real time, providing better traffic management. With 2 billion cars expected on our roads by 2035, intelligent transportation systems will prove critical to reducing emissions. Ericsson worked with West Midlands 5G to conduct a successful trial across live 4G and 5G radio infrastructure along the A435 in Kings Heath, Birmingham. At a specific junction, the team analysed the data from a mast and compared it to a physical roadside sensor. The results showed a high level of accuracy for this early prototype, demonstrating its potential to replace standard roadside sensors. To transform the raw data into traffic insights, AI and machine learning are applied to the 5G data to generate real-time traffic information. To explain how this works, radio waves travel towards the cellular mast from smartphones. The radio waves scatter off the surfaces of nearby vehicles. The cellular mast reports radio wave scattering characteristics to a system known as Mast as a Sensor. The Mast as a Sensor uses AI and machine learning to turn the radio wave characteristics into vehicle counts, using completely anonymized data. In the future, 5G masts as sensors could also provide additional information about our environment, emissions, and even give insights into the weather.
Sophie Allison, Head of Business Transformation, West Midlands Metro. So we're really excited to be part of the innovation and the first tram system in the UK to have 5G, so we're really proud of that. We're now moving forward with some of these great projects this year.
Roger Matthews, MD at Go Media. We're focused on the Transport Accessibility Project. our aim is to increase the amount of independent journeys that the visually impaired can take, which means that passengers can hold up their mobile device, and that then links into our live passenger information service. Passenger walks onto a platform, we can tell them what platform they're on, we can tell them what trams are going to be arriving on that platform.
That's, helping a particular group of passengers who need that extra assistance just to understand the network. So that project really is showing how Metro is looking at all customers and what we can do to make things better for everyone.
I'm Steve Erdle, I'm the CSO at WordNerds, and our project involves training artificial intelligence to understand passenger experience. So this is kind of a union of artificial intelligence, linguistics, and 5G to solve a problem which is how do you go about understanding your passengers. So what we've attempted to do is to help West Midlands Metro to group and respond to their customer responses from the tram. If someone's in a vulnerable situation, they can respond to our service. It means that they can send images as well to further elucidate the problem.
So we're understanding what our passengers are talking about. We know what tram they're on. So for example, if a passenger said it's a bit cold on this tram, we'll know exactly what tram they're talking about through the 5G, and we can turn the heating on.
Hi, it's Eddie Crompton from Digital Rail. I'm a project manager for the Tram and Safety Project. So our systems can identify images within the CCTV and detect incidents, which can then be reported to staff who can take action. Importantly, we're able to stream video as well to the mobile apps that the staff will carry.
And actually having the ability to understand if a bag was left on a seat and we get notified that that hasn't been moved in a while, there's something suspect, we can act on that. All of these projects feed into obviously securing a safe, reliable, sustainable system for our passengers.
How much of this could have been done with 4G, and what's the difference that 5G has made?
Matthew Hack, Head of Engineering, West Midlands Metro. It really comes down to the scale and the speed of data transfer. And I think that 5G, with its capacity and its ability to offer us high resolution video in real time, is kind of a game changer for that. And that's one of the real benefits of 5G we see on the trams.
And it's wonderful to see how 5G genuinely is making a difference. Because when you remind us that we're the first tram system in the UK to have 5G, I know that, but I don't think many people across the West Midlands knew that. So we need to get the story out there, basically.
My name's John Fryer. Our project is the 5G-enabled Dynamic Network Capacity Manager, and we are a team comprised of Black Limited, Elgin, Immense and the University of Warwick.
My name is Robin North. I'm co-founder, chief executive of Immense Simulations. We are a UK SME. We're excited about this programme because it enables us to work with some world-leading capabilities in the UK ecosystem to be able to work at the leading edge of 5G data availability and use cases, and to really deploy it in anger with end customers.
It's been brilliant working with the team at West Midlands 5G so far. Really excited to start to get the simulation tools that have been used for so long at really the high level of planning our cities and getting those into the hands of the operators who keep the road network moving every day.
So what encouraged us to engage with this project was the opportunity to address that fundamental capability gap, to create a tool that tells us fundamentally what percentage of the network capacity is available at any point in time on the network, and then enables highway colleagues to run scenarios, test the impact of proposed works, understand the impact of incidents, and run scenarios in response to that in a near real-time way to improve how we manage networks in a more proactive, coordinated way.
I'm Behzad Heravi, co-founder and technical director, CTO of Vortex IoT. Vortex IoT is an ambitious SME working on innovative IoT solutions for smart infrastructure, Industry 4 and smart cities. In the consortium for these projects, we work with two large organizations, National Express, one of the largest public transport provider in the West Midlands and in the UK, and BT, British Telecoms, one of the world's leading communication service providers. So when I saw the competition announcement through Innovate UK, I found it would be interesting to apply the technology in the smart city domain and 5G-enabled transport use cases. So we are experiencing a rapid urbanization and population growth, which puts pressure into the existing transport infrastructure to cope with this ever-increasing demand. Realization of smart city requires data, continuous real-time ubiquitous data to reduce this gap between the physical and the digital world through mapping, tracking, monitoring, and processing. And this is where we aim to contribute data and information. This is an 18-month project. It includes 3 months pilot phase and a live demonstrator in the West Midlands in the future mobility testbed. We will use 8 buses and 3 bus routes to demonstrate the outcomes of these projects. And after this time, then we'll continue to increase the technology readiness to the product rollout level in a further 9 months.
So I'm Rob State, I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Applyway, and Applyway is leading a consortium. We are collaborating with Get Mapping, and we are going to use 5G to provide real-time availability of parking and build the most accurate predictive availability product that is on the market. We'd worked with West Midlands 5G and with Transport for West Midlands before. So we've had lots of discussions about their ambitions, about the innovations that we can bring, and also what our vision could do to help. So we knew already that we had the beginnings of a great idea, we had great partners, and we had a local authority willing to work with us. The problem that we are solving by using 5G with the availability of parking is that 5G helps us address issues with the latency of data. Our solution is reliant on the transfer and the analytics, multiple large image files. They would otherwise take far too long to upload. So 5G helps us with that. 5G also helps us with the bandwidth, because when our solution is rolled out at scale, it'd see lots of vehicles equipped with our capability and transferring those files all at the same time. So this means that 5G helps us to get closer to real-time availability of parking.
I guess you've heard a little bit from me in terms of the programme, what it's all about. You've seen an overview of the projects, both from our point of view, and you've heard a little bit from the consortia themselves and the customers in some case there, with an example being West Midlands Metro. I guess our focus within our team has been and continues to be to try and ensure the projects are a success. So we've got 3 topics that we wanted to cover with you today, really to talk about, how we're trying very hard to add some benefit and value in terms of the grant oversight. So first up is Chris Deakin.
So thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody. It isn't true that you have to be called Chris to work for West Midlands 5G. We do now have a David and a Martin as well, and they'll be talking shortly. So I'm one of the 3 project managers who works on the transport team. I'm currently responsible for delivering 5 of our projects, with an emphasis on rail. So what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is really how we round these projects off. And I think it's fair to say that it's really important to us that we're not simply just running projects here with a start and a finish, and we put something out the door at the end. It is very much an opportunity to build relationships. So build relationships within consortia, build relationships outside of those consortia. And that really leads us to the three things here, which is strong product development, strong relationships, and really strong dissemination. And obviously today is an opportunity to come and do part of that exercise. So just to take it back to product development. So really, when we work with consortia, we are quite challenging and we really want them to consider the development of a fully rounded product and how they're going to get it into the marketplace, where it sits in the marketplace, potential cost of that product, have they, gone in and spoken to potential purchasers of that. And really, the consortia that we develop and award grants to, within that consortia, it's an opportunity for technology partners to work with transport providers and cover the whole ecosystem. But in doing so, they are immediately working with some of their potential customers. So we are putting together consortia of small, medium-sized enterprises, transport providers, all backed up with the knowledge and expertise of WM5G and the mobile network operators, along with Transport for West Midlands also bringing their expertise as well. Looking a little bit beyond that, we put a big emphasis on what we call benefits realization. So benefits realization really allows us to work with the consortia in a very detailed way and lift the lid on the sorts of issues and areas they should be covering to develop a full product. So the sorts of things we looked at are listed here, but we're particularly interested as a 5G organization, obviously, to look at the 5G testbed. We're particularly interested to look at some specific quantified benefits descriptions. So it's not just, yes, this is going to help people, or this is going to be attractive to a particular part of the rail industry, for example, or road, but we're really interested to understand what specifically those benefits are, how many people it will help and how, and really put some numbers behind it to ensure that we've got a very strong product at the end of the project. As I've already touched on, building relationships across a wide range of stakeholders, and we call on these people not just to do the glamorous stuff, such as the dissemination, or to celebrate the end of the project, but often they're engaged during the project to help and support and resolve issues that may come up during the work. It also gives an opportunity through dissemination and through early feedback to an extended stakeholder group for the consortia to be able to road test their products and access some fairly senior decision makers, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. I've already spoken about our extended stakeholder group, and again, I guess today we've got an opportunity to extend that further. So if there is anyone who's interested in finding out a little bit more, as I'm sure Chris will touch on at the end, then do come back and let us know. But certainly with regard to the WMCA region, we are engaged with any number of local transport bodies, the UK 5G community, national and local government, transport providers, commercial organisations, you name it, and we've probably spoken to them in the last 18 months. And finally there, just rounding off the relationship piece, we disseminate. So this is an early opportunity for, it's kind of what I would call soft sales, I guess, you know, for these consortia to show the products that have been developed, to be able to gauge the market interest and get immediate feedback, both from their immediate consortia group, but also within the stakeholder channels that WM5G supports. That's it from me with regard to how we round off the project. And I think it's David who's going to speak next.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. If you just want to switch to the next slide. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to spend a few minutes today talking you through our sort of experiences of managing the projects and the sort of companies that we've been working with. And this relates back to the videos that you were shown earlier. So, Chris, next slide, please. Okay, so within the world of WM5G, we are very focused on 5G. It does what we say on the tin, but I wanted to talk specifically around two areas. One, how we fund, what we do in terms of funding the projects, and then what we believe we do in terms of trying to add value and move those projects forward. Chris, please. Okay, so just picking up the first of those themes, funding innovative projects. Obviously, what we're doing is we're providing grant funding as a public body, as a public entity, and therefore it might raise the question: are we the paymasters or are we the project managers? You know, how involved do we get in terms of managing these projects? Well, if we think about who the companies are that we work with, the use case projects that I lead a number of, as do my colleagues, are principally led by SMEs. So they are consortium-based projects, but the lead partner in each of those tends to be a small or medium-sized enterprise, so a relatively small business. We don't tend to deal directly with large corporate entities, although they may be involved in the project in some capacity. And what do we do with regard to those projects? Well, yes, in simple terms, we award grants, which effectively kicks off the project. We agree the deliverables, what we expect in terms of an outcome. As the project continues, we request the evidence so that we can assess those claims, and then we pay on the basis of those claims and the evidence. So yes, we pay on results. So in that simple view, yes, we are the paymasters. But actually, if you drill further down into what we actually do in terms of running the projects, it becomes a little more unclear in terms of that paymaster role. So how do we manage those projects? Well, what we do is, bearing in mind that we are working with relatively small companies, we do from the outset provide project governance. So we do try to give some clear guidance in terms of how the project should be run, a framework for running those projects, and making sure that those objectives are clear from the outset with a kick-off meeting with all stakeholders. We want to very early on promote an understanding of delivery risks, because risk management is really what project management is all about, in terms of understanding what it is, what those risks are, what issues are likely to arise as the project goes forward. We always want to push for a clear timing plan. So right from the outset, we say that the timing plan, if you get a clear timing plan, then you've got a clear method of tracking that project. And from that timing plan, you can pull out the critical path, and then you can move forward understanding what the dependencies and the interactions are between the tasks. And then, of course, in terms of evidence, you want to, I've written here, pen a good story, which is about constructing a report which nicely articulates what it is you've achieved, and therefore we can validates the activity, and we can pay on the basis of that. And then moving forward, the project is really about coming up with something, a commercially viable product. So, and Chris mentioned benefits realizations in his piece, and that's what we really want to do. We want to tease out those business opportunities and work with those businesses in understanding what their exploitation will be as the project comes to a close. So the why, therefore, is summed up by: we want to bring new products to market. We are not innovating for innovation's sake. Okay, Chris, please. And then the other sort of stream of thought that we wanted to mention was having sort of got those projects moving and having understood how we're going to fund and how those projects are going to be tracked and maintained. What is it we can do as WM5G to add value, and by adding value, make the project successful? So as a team, and we're all here today on the call, the transport team brings a wealth of engineering, manufacturing and new product experience to the project. So we have a diverse industry background, which covers anything from electronics through optoelectronics and through automotive, very relevant to the transport team. And just to give you a flavour of what we believe we've achieved so far by applying the techniques and guidance that we've applied in the last financial year, the actual costs for the whole portfolio of use case projects were within 2% of the budget that we set for that year. So effectively, the projects were delivered on plan, on time, and they continue to track on plan currently until the close of the programme in March 22, when the total value of that programme over the 2 years that it's running will be around about £10 million. And so just touching upon how we think we've achieved that, we've done that by providing that structure. We have regular touch points and reviews. So we do guide. We don't manage the projects per se. That's the responsibility of the consortium. But what we do is we provide that governance, oversight and encouragement along the way, whilst keeping focused to keep the plan on track, which is why we put an emphasis on getting a detailed timing plan from the start, and then we can manage those critical tasks. But and a key point here is that we are not we try to, if you like, shield the projects from what might be perceived as, the constraints of perhaps government and public funding body protocols and procedures, by being a little bit more alert and agile, by understanding how these companies work, by encouraging them and understanding how they can be flexible, and by being flexible in return. And we do that by having effective change management processes and always working closely with those companies through the duration of the project. So I've picked out in the orange bubbles there a few of those examples of how we've worked closely with projects. So on the risk management, we've sourced mitigation. We've done sourcing mitigation plans with these guys, because of course we're in a current environment where we have the challenges of COVID. And also global chip shortages. So we've managed to work with the teams to overcome those issues. We've provided the rapid response to issues when we've needed to, and make sure that recovery plans in place, and work closely with the guys to understand how they can overcome those issues. And we've also provided a focus on cybersecurity. And because that's key, if you're because we're not just innovating for innovation's sake, we're actually putting products out in the market. So a key element of that is making sure that consumers have confidence in the product, and for that we've put a focus on cybersecurity, which sort of brings me nicely to the close of my presentation, and I think provides a little opening gambit for the next one by my colleague Martin. So thanks very much for listening.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. Martin Thirlaway, one of the project managers alongside Chris and David here at WM5G. So I'm going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity in terms of what we have done to support the projects with that very critical topic in mind, I guess. But as a bit of a lead in, I've just written a few facts here, which are provided to try and focus the mind a little bit on the criticality of this subject. So 39% of all UK businesses have reported security breaches in the last 12 months alone. That's a pretty high percentage. And in terms of cost, cyber attacks, again in the UK, £34 billion per annum, which is trending at a 90% year-on-year increase. They're pretty eye-watering numbers when you think about them. It's not all about the money. If you are a company that has a breach or an attack, there are other effects apart from the money: reputational damage, team morale, and of course long-term potential detrimental effect on productivity of the business. And there doesn't seem, from my own research, to be any, there's no real focus on where these attacks occur. It can be an SME just as much as a global corporation. And these stats, if you like, are potentially made worse by COVID. It's already been mentioned. In these current times, although lockdown is easing, thankfully, we still, as human beings, all expect, if you like, a seamless interaction with any companies or services that we might pay for, as we all go about our kind of digital lives at the moment. Just to point out a few newsworthy items which you probably have heard about. Again, there's some big companies involved in these. So Chrysler, back in July 15, 1.4 million cars recalled worldwide. Pretty eye-watering statistic, that one. And Toyota had a breach where over 3 million customers' data were actually retrieved. Both automotive, both big companies. So like I say, anyone can be affected. And then perhaps a little bit more recently, there was an attack on a US business, oil business called Colonial. And basically, the oil pipeline was disrupted and equaled 2.5 million barrels per day loss in delivery of diesel, gas, and even jet fuel. The most recent one I could find actually was just yesterday with the world's largest meat producer called JBS in the US, was shut down again by a hack as the business decided to close down its infrastructure. So these things really do have the potential to affect our daily lives now, perhaps something that we as, in our ordinary lives don't really think too much about. So a couple of comments really. 80% of potential customers to a business say that they would not buy from a company that had been hacked. I guess that's lack of confidence in the business. So the bottom line is, these attacks really do have the potential to destroy a business in a financial and commercial way. Okay, next slide, please, Chris. So cybersecurity, yes, topic which we all hear an awful lot about, actually. Our own projects, as has been said already, are all about 5G and communication. But of course, anything that becomes connected has an opportunity to be attacked. So in any form of business, as I've already said. There's an awful lot of best practice advice out there. A lot of the transport team, as David alluded to, are from an automotive or transport or communications background. And that, for myself, being in automotive specifically, I have touched the subject of cybersecurity before, but I'm no means an expert. But there is no shortage of advice out there from government departments such as DCMS, National Cyber Security Centre, NIST in the US. There's a lot of literature, but it all needs to be turned into something useful for a project. And those bubbles are all the kind of buzzwords and phrases that perhaps we all come across or hear all the time around this topic. But again, from a WM5G perspective, we took a step back and had a little think about how we could support the projects, even though we're not experts in the subject ourselves. What could we do? So next slide, Chris. So what we did was have a little think about the approach to the subject. We really wanted to add value by providing an independent review of the subject of security for our projects. And when we started this subject, if you like, for the project, we wanted to think about how much we could do ourselves as not being expert, and then what specialist support could we could we go and find and deploy to support us in our endeavours. So on the left-hand side there, the top orange kind of bubble was what we did to start with. We constructed, with support from people within our own business and organisation, we constructed a 100-point questionnaire, which we asked all of the project partners to fill in. And that gave us a sort of baseline, if you like, on where these companies were in terms of their appreciation of data management and cyber security. There were some topics then which started to fall into the category of if you like, expert support. And we started to discuss things like network diagrams and any security protocols that the projects were applying to their architecture. And then further down, we got to the point where we started to talk about the real nitty-gritty, and it became quite apparent that we did need some help. In order, if we were going to add some real value to these projects, we felt that getting sort of purchasing or hiring some best practice partner in the field of cybersecurity was what we actually needed, and they were to sort of go and basically assess the projects in terms of looking at the controls with one of the best known ISO standards, which is of course 2001. And some of the things that we started to ask questions around there were, software development life cycle, any change in management process that the projects were running, patching, security incident management was another key issue. And then, when the projects become live and are in a position where we could do some testing, then we also asked a lot of questions as to what testing had been planned for the specific projects. So we hired a partner who was indeed an expert, and we constructed an interview, if you like. Several questions were asked according to the controls within 27001. So it was fundamentally an audit, but what we found was, after a bit of a rocky start, you can probably imagine some of the projects didn't welcome this assessment or audit. We prefer to call it an assessment. We didn't think it was quite as scary. But after that, sort of, once we'd got through to the guys that we were really trying to support them, we weren't trying to catch anybody out. We really wanted to try and help them uncover any weaknesses in the architecture, in the communications architecture for each of the projects. So when we finished the assessment, we ended up with a report out for each of the projects, which highlighted any weaknesses which perhaps needed some further attention. It was up to the projects themselves whether they felt they wanted to go and strengthen any weak areas. We didn't mandate it, but of course we recommended it. So lessons learned, if you like, or what we found out was probably not unsurprising, but some of the bigger companies were perhaps not so good at, not such a good score on this assessment. Some of the smaller companies did very well. We also discovered that even though in some instances the projects may well have good written processes and plans, but perhaps they weren't following them, which seemed a real shame when the effort had already gone in. We had some really, really positive feedback at the end. So despite the, if you like, the rocky start in terms of, were we inhibiting or doing something else which demanded more time from each of the projects, we had some really positive comments back to say, how helpful it had been in the end, and that each of the projects really felt that it was a positive contribution. And coincidentally, one of Chris's projects in the rail sector also had been working on their Cyber Essentials certification, and shortly after our assessment, they went straight through and were awarded their Cyber Essentials certificate. So it was a great end to a sort of mini project within the management and support of all our consortia. So we really did feel it was a kind of a job well done at the end. And just to finish off, really, we do have a strong aspiration to see that these 5G projects actually go to market in a safe and secure, and hopefully, as a result of that, a commercially viable way, because cybersecurity really does have the potential to take these projects out. So, yeah, it was an interesting project and one that we got some very positive feedback for. So that's about it from me from cybersecurity. I think, Chris, we're going to go into maybe some questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Good place to finish. So we are now more or less out of time, actually, in terms of the allocated time. We're ahead of schedule in terms of what we were planning to discuss with you, but obviously we had a slightly later start. So we've talked about the project management, we've talked about some of the customer market feedback and how we're engaging and trying to help the consortia. We're also Martin's just talked about the cyber input and the process that we've adopted with that as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight in terms of what we're doing.